Hi, I'm Emma and I own a indoor plant nursery here in Australia called Chalet Boutique. I've been talking a lot online recently and I've been getting more and more questions about why I started this business. And I realise it's probably time I introduce myself and explain why Chalet Boutique exists. For a long time, people would ask me or say, "Are you a COVID business?" And I would sort of laugh and go along with it because we did launch around COVID time. But the truth is, we started well before COVID. The planning and the thinking and the quiet rebuilding of my life had already begun long before the lockdowns and plant trends. We officially launched just before the world changed, but the reasons behind this business go further back than that. I haven't shared my personal story before, and it's not because I was trying to hide it, but because I wanted the time and space to do it properly. Some parts are deeply personal, and I tried to keep my business identity separate from my personal life. But over the years, I've realized that those two worlds don't really exist without each other. And the business is really what was shaped by my life. So this isn't going to be a polished video. It's simply what I would tell you if you were standing in front of me and asked this question. But before I can continue, I do want to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land in which I live and work, the Palawa people. I pay my respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to any Torres Strait Islander and Aboriginal people who may be watching. As part of my background, I mention names of artists who have passed away. I do so with deep respect and acknowledge that for some communities, hearing these names, disease can be really sensitive. I also want to mention that I briefly refer to the loss of our baby as part of my story. And although I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in that, I know that this topic can be really heavy for some people. So please take care of yourself if you need to. Before plants, my career was in the arts, and I spent nearly 20 years working in the art world. Most of that was in the Indigenous art space and later in major commercial galleries interstate. In that world, ethics, culture, understanding, and provenance are everything. Provenance means that it's a documented history of something. So in art, it means it's where it came from, who created it, who owned it, and how that moves through time. So if you get provenance wrong in the art world, it's serious and it affects the trust and the value and also cultural respect. I've worked with the most extraordinary Tasmanian artists like Lola Greeno, Mick Quillam, the Oates family, Auntie Eva Richardson, just to name a few. And from the mainland, I worked with artists like Minnie Poyle, Gloria Bachari, Yuman Duma, Bill Harney, Rover Thomas, Emily Kane Ingwari, Clifford Possum Chapuljarri, and Dorothy Napangati, just to name some. And in Brisbane, I worked with galleries representing artists such as David Bromley, Ben Quilty, Jeffrey Smart, Margaret Olley, Rickamore, William Robinson. And after I was in Brisbane, I moved back to Tasmania and I was working in the Aboriginal art world again, and I travelled to a lot of Indigenous communities and I worked with major collectors throughout the world and museums to place works into major collections so that they could be preserved and exhibited respectfully. So that kind of work trains you deeply that you do not exaggerate provenance, you don't inflate value, and you don't misrepresent the origin, and you don't cut corners. If you do, you lose trust. So from here, my life changed. I had a very complicated pregnancy with our baby boy, and he was born sleeping. His name is Eli, and I was far into my pregnancy, and it's from there that everything shifted. Those kind of experiences change you quietly and permanently, and it changes how you think about time, ambition, stress, and it does put in perspective what really matters for you. I tried to return to work at the gallery, but I couldn't operate the same way anymore. Grief really shifts your nervous system, and it really shifted my capacity of what I could give. I had a pregnancy after, and now we have a rainbow baby who's not a baby anymore, but she's our rainbow baby, and her name is Florence. And when she was born, she needed some support immediately. She had some feeding issues, and I needed to see specialists and do therapy and have appointments. And it was just one thing that was happening after another. So going back to work, I couldn't fit my new world into a traditional 9 to 5 kind of structure. And so around that same time, not around that same time, but I also found out I had ADHD. So it was something that I'd masked for ages, most of my life. And after having kids, masking became impossible. So I couldn't perform in someone else's structure, but also managing grief and motherhood and my own regulation, I needed to make a choice. So forcing myself back into that structure wasn't going to fit my life anymore. So I needed to build something that did. Plants were always one thing that constantly regulated me. Whenever I felt unsafe, unstable, I would go to plants and I'd use my hands, and that caring of something became a big foundation for me. And so I slowly started building this business, and some part of that I didn't really know I was doing it until it happened. It was just a slow process, and it was not to become huge, and it wasn't to dominate a market. It was to create flexibility and allow me to be present for my family. So this isn't a big flashy story of explosive growth. It's been a steady and really intentional journey. So in this world now, I'm a businesswoman. I look at margins, I calculate freight carefully because it's very hard to get freight right. And especially being a plant business in Tasmania, we have things like biosecurity and different layers of shipping. I analyse data and I make some really hard decisions about what to stock and what not to. But I run the business now with the same ethics that I'd learned in the art world. And provenance really matters to me. I realised that when I started the business that plants have provenance too. They've got breeding history, they have lineage, they have growers, and they have origins and stories. And even tissue culture plants have a history. So I try to be as transparent as I can be. So if for plant tissue culture, I'll say. If something's no longer that rare, I'll say. And those reasons can be from supply and demand, as in any industry. If prices are shifting because of production. I'll explain that. And if biosecurity regulations add cost and complexities, I'll explain why. So I'm not here to justify or criticize anyone, but I feel like informing people and being as transparent as possible builds a stronger community. I feel like there's space in this industry for the large growers and nurseries and collectors and hobbyists and small plant businesses like mine. We all operate under different pressures. But what I care most about in my role is to do my part respectfully. I don't overhype and I don't create artificial scarcity. And I don't want to pretend something is extraordinary if it isn't. Plants move through hands, growers, labs, and communities, and each of those stages really matter. So I guess the business sits at an intersection of all these different parts of my life. And it's through grief, healing, motherhood, the art world and ethics, and neurodivergence. But everything comes back to my genuine love for indoor plants. And I do want to be clear that I'm not sharing this story for sympathy. We're okay. And I'm really proud of what we have built. I'm sharing it because I want to host some more conversations around sourcing and tissue culture, rare, what that means, pricing, ethics in the industry. And I feel like that the viewers deserve to understand what lens I'm speaking from. I'm doing my best to operate in a space without disrespecting anybody while still standing firmly in my own values. So if you're here, thank you. Your support allows me to support my daughter in the ways that she needs. And over the next few months, I'd really like to share some more conversations about the plant industry from a balanced point of view. So if there is something that you would like me to cover, please send me a message because I'd love to hear from you. So thank you for your time today.